Yeah.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Tom Munns. I am the area coordinator with the John Burt Society, but today I've got a special treat for you. Well, if you want to call it a treat, for those of us that are awake and we're information junkies, we like to be able to find the truth wherever we can. In that respect, it is a treat for you today, truly. I know that there's a lot of my fellow Idahoans that have been concerned about the issue in Ohio. Our prayers, man, our sincerest prayers are with the rest of the country that is having to deal with this. What is glaringly, so the people in Idaho here are being called conspiracy theorists for their friends that can't yet fathom the reality of what we're about to talk about, which is really a dangerous position for us to be. I've always been somebody that's wanted to be able to stay up on the news, and although I'm not a newscaster or have a podcast, I do what I can to help bring the truth to people that need it, to help justify what's going on and to help kind of connect the dots on all of the tragedies that are coming our way. And so today I'm humbly welcomed. I'm joined with Coach David Daubenmire. How you doing, Coach?
Awesome, Tom.
And I've got a couple of other folks. I think we've got Jeff Louderback on there. Jeff, tell us a little bit about yourself, my friend.
Oh, I just logged in and I'm right on the air. I like that.
Well, I told him, Jeff, that you're under a time constraint, so that's why we want to give it to you right at the top, bud.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'm based here in the Cincinnati-Dayton area. I'm a national reporter with the Epoch Times, and what I do, I cover the White House normally on a regular basis. The right now, obviously, the Biden administration, but I'm covering the East Palestine, the train derailment right now, and right for the foreseeable future, because there's so many developments that keep arising every day. So,
well, we in Idaho are definitely aware of who the Epoch Times is. We definitely are supporters of what has been going on with you guys and what you're doing and what you've been attempting to do. And so, although we're small potatoes out here, literally Idaho potatoes, sorry. We really wanted to, if I get to take the opportunity on speak, on behalf of my fellow Idahoans, man, we really appreciate everything that you're doing. And we, on those days where you're wondering if things are making a difference, if you have those thoughts like some of us do, just know that there's a bunch of us that are backing you. So we really, really appreciate you joining us today. And the rest of that, Coach, I don't know who the rest of these people. I know who Eric is. He's a friend of mine, and then I don't know who anybody else is.
Well, why don't we do this, Tom? For Coach Dave Dobbin, I'm having trouble getting my video up and running here, so bear with me. I want to give this time. Let's give this time to Jeff, okay? Let's just start with Jeff as much time as he has, because he's been on the ground for 7 days up there, right, Jeff? You actually were probably in some type of hazmat suit or something, that this is not really a very safe place for people to be right now. Tell us, give us your 15-minute spiel here, Jeff. What's going on up there?
yeah, well, first of all, I appreciate being on the podcast, and yeah, I got it was around a week ago where I got a notification that I was learning more about this, and I wanted to go up and cover it, and got the go ahead from the editors. I was there for 3 days this week, and then I'm going back next week to do a series of interviews. When I got there, and I bought a respirator and safety goggles. I bought one of those painters suits, just to like shoe covers, and I didn't know what I was going to encounter when I was there. So I went there, and pretty much the town is okay. As far as when I was there, I didn't really smell anything, but I went to the scene, and obviously I wasn't going to mess around with that. So I put on all the PPE, and I took all those photos that have been getting a lot of attention, because I guess no one else was riding up there. I was walking through all the cars and the railroad tracks, and observing all the cleanup, and I was the only one wearing PPE. None of the workers were wearing PPE, but so I spent the time there. I spent time interviewing residents, went to the town hall, which was a very eventful meeting that Norfolk Southern, the railroad company, decided at the last second not to show up because they were afraid. They cited safety concerns. They thought they would be putting their employees in danger. So, but that reminded me, that scene at the town hall reminded me like a football Friday there, or what I imagine it being, because I had never been to East Palestine before. It's about 15 miles from the Pennsylvania border in eastern Ohio, northeastern Ohio, and but yeah, there was a line about 200 to 300 yards long of residents wanting to get in, and East Palestine only has 4,700 people, so yeah, it was a very eventful evening, and then so I had been there 3 days doing nonstop interviews and exploring and talking to people, and after that meeting, I filed a story and went home. I didn't get home till like 3 in the morning because it's about a 4 hour drive here to in between Dayton and Cincinnati.
So what's going on up there, Jeff? What's going on? Because obviously I'm sorry, Tom. Don't mean to
Please.
jump in.
Hey, man, I'm just glad to be here.
See, I live about 100 miles, as a crow flies. I live about 100 miles from where he is. And again, sorry, folks, my camera isn't up and working yet. And we're worried about fallout. We're worried about water. We're hearing everything on the internet, Jeff, but nothing on the news, right? And so here you are, a news reporter up there, and those of us who are in this area of the fallout, or some of our friends live up in Buffalo, and the stuff's blowing up this way. And what's the scoop, Jeff? Is this really something that we need to be concerned about? I heard somebody say that this was a Chernobyl. What's your take on all that?
Well, I don't know if it's Chernobyl yet. It could be. It's definitely catastrophic for that area, which is the East Palestine is in Columbiana County. I think about 40 miles south of Youngstown, 15 miles from the Pennsylvania border, probably about 35 miles from Pittsburgh. And yeah, the residents are very concerned, short term and long term, about their soil, the water, the air. People who have chickens and goats are worried that they can't eat the meat and can't eat the eggs, and can't drink the milk. They're afraid to even take a shower right now because they don't know about the water. And there's been a real lack of transparency from the EPA and
so Jeff, let me
state.
jump in here, because these folks out in Idaho, they're still in bed when we get up in the morning. They're a couple time zones behind us. So take 5 minutes and explain what happened. This train derails. It's got like 25 tankers on it full of this poison, and somebody at some point says, let's just burn it off. Right?
Well, yeah, that was February 3rd. It's Norfolk Southern, and they have dozens of trains that go through East Palestine. I think this was headed somewhere in Pennsylvania. And what happened was it derailed. It, according to video 20 miles away, it had been sparking and on fire for about 20 miles, and then it derailed outside of East Palestine. It caught fire, and there was a chemical spill. What happened after that was and the mayor addressed this at the town hall. He was saying they really didn't have a choice. It was either going to explode and shrapnel would go all over the place, or they could do a controlled burn. So I understand that, because it was a very serious crash. So I understand why they did the controlled burn, but it released, they didn't, for 4 days, didn't say what was on the train. It ended up being 4 very toxic chemicals that don't ask me to pronounce, because I can't spell them or pronounce them. But they call all these chemicals are known to cause cancer and all sorts of issues. And so all the residents I've talked to, and I've read a lot of stories too, people have vomiting, rashes, their headaches.
Animals dying.
I'm sorry. Well,
animals dying, right?
I didn't see any animal. I saw the animals I saw were all alive, but I've seen photos of dead fish and dead animals, and but they don't know the animals that are alive. They don't know long-term effects. I mean, that goes back to like the goats, the chickens, they don't know, and the gardens, they don't know if they are soils because they can't get anyone to test anything right now. So February 3rd is when that happened. They had an evacuation notice. February 8th, Governor Mike DeWine, for people who aren't in Ohio, and he gave the evacuation order, or he lifted the evacuation order so people could come back in. But a lot of people think that was too soon, a lot of residents, because they came back and they're having health issues as far as the burning, eyes burning. And I didn't have any, the only time I wore PPE when I was there was by the crash site, but I was all around town. I didn't wear anything. I didn't experience that, but those, I was only there a few days. These people are there the entire time. So, yeah, so people are afraid. They're afraid about the short term. They're afraid like 5 years from now, what's going to happen. And they're afraid of it's Appalachia. So not everyone, but there's many people who have a low median income, so they can't afford to leave, and their property values they can't get, whoever wants to sell their house really can't do that right now because, people aren't going to want to buy a house in a property or a town like that right now has all those issues. So
but
it's
Jeff,
just
the reality of it is, again, I'm down around in the Columbus area. You're down Cincinnati. People, we're talking Ohio. A lot of people don't understand the makeup of Ohio. But
yeah.
what people are concerned about, Jeff, is not only the fallout. Some guys said they'd set off a nuclear bomb. That was the impact. Now, whether that's true or not, that's what a lot of people have said. The fallout into the farmland, into all that stuff. But Jeff, into the waterways, right? So the Ohio River, folks, the Ohio River, the mouth of the Ohio River is about 15 miles. The Ohio River begins about 15 miles from where this took place. And the concern is that the water all the way down, there's a good picture on the screen right now, all the way down to Cincinnati, which is clear at the far end of that. They're worried about the water being poisoned all the way down southern Ohio, eastern Ohio, western Ohio, the water table being poisoned. What's your take on that, Jeff?
Well, I think from what I've seen that's a little bit of fear mongering because here in Cincinnati, they've done testing and it's a very low impact. I mean, the Ohio River is not exactly the cleanest river to begin.
Right.
It's but as far as the impact down here in Cincinnati, I haven't seen any credible proof that that's true. But that area there in Columbiana County and East Palestine, that's the main concern for the long term because you have 4 toxic chemicals in the air, and everything is the soil, the water, the people wear, their clothes, their houses. That's I'm looking more in depth. I'm doing a story on the Ohio River this week. I mean, this weekend, early next week. So I'm going to be focusing more on that. But I've talked to some experts, and they're not, non-government experts, so they don't have any reason to lie, and they don't think that it's a serious impact here in southern or southwest Ohio. But time will tell about that.
Well,
But I think
that's if we could. These are the same experts that told us to take a jab, though, too, aren't they, Jeff? Huh?
Well, not these, because these are because I mean, people who know me know that I stood up against mask mandates and vaccine mandates. I think there's a lot of unnecessary fear mongering going on down here, but I know that the perception is that all of Ohio, and yeah, I imagine many people in Idaho, just as many people in Ohio don't know the makeup of Idaho, vice versa.
Right.
Cincinnati is a 4-hour drive from Cleveland. So I remember I lived in Florida for 13 years and someone would say, "Hey, my cousin lives up in Cleveland. Do you know him?" Like, like Ohio is Iowa or a place like that. But Ohio is a very diverse state. Cincinnati, Columbus, Cleveland are 3 of the largest cities in the country. You have Amish country, not far from where one of the largest concentration of Amish, not far from where the derailment happened. You have the Ohio River in southern Ohio and eastern Ohio. You have Lake Erie, and the Lake Erie Islands in northern Ohio. So Ohio's a very large and diverse state, and there's 11 million people, 11.7 million people who live in Ohio. So yeah, it's
So
I
Jeff,
think
you don't sound as panicked as some of the people that I've had, from a guy that's been there on the ground, see what's going on. Life is going on pretty much as normal in East Palestine. See, folks, it looks like Palestine, but they call it Palestine up there.
Oh no, I didn't say that. I said
Okay.
East Palestine, and that's what my point. East Palestine and Columbiana County, it's a very catastrophic situation and very serious.
A love canal type thing, right?
We don't know if we don't know long-term effect because there hasn't been much transparency. But what I'm saying is people are acting like all of Ohio is toxic, and that's just the credible information. There's been no credible information to suggest that's true. And so like people from Idaho, maybe someone from Idaho wants to buy something and have it shipped from Ohio. There's a lot of people who are outside of Ohio who don't fully know what's going on, that just
Yeah.
think that everything's toxic, and that's going to hurt Ohio businesses. That's going to hurt tourism, because Ohio has Kings Island and Cedar Point, which are two of the most popular amusement parks in the country. People, because of roller coasters, people make roller coaster vacations, and I've heard people are already canceling trips because they think, and that's not even close. Kings Island is near where I am right now, and Cedar Point is up in Northwest Ohio in Sandusky. So
a couple things, Jeff.
yeah.
A couple, because I know you have to go. Number one, where can your Facebook page? How Tom, you have that, don't you? A copy of his Facebook
think
page.
so. Yeah, I think so.
Follow all the stuff that Jeff's been doing, and you've been doing it on the Epoch Times as well, the Epic Times, whatever phrase, right, Jeff? Where can the guy really wants to kind of figure out what's going on? How do they find you, Jeff?
Yeah, that's my personal Facebook page, but I put all my professional, and I made all my stuff public so people can follow, because I'm writing about 2 articles a day and for the next the upcoming weeks and months, I'll be covering this in addition to my White House beat, and then Epic Times. You could go to the Epic Times website and go in the search engine and type in Jeff Louderback, and that's my author page will come up, and you can see anything that I've done. I've been covering this for about a week, so.
So would it be, Jeff? Would it be safe to say that really we don't really know what's going on here? We really don't know, right? That
exactly. The people don't know. The residents, that they want answers, they can't get them. The experts, the EPA, obviously FEMA. Governor DeWine tried to get an emergency declared, and FEMA said they wouldn't grant it because it wasn't a traditional disaster like a hurricane or a tornado. So yeah, it's in the early stages, but obviously they don't know the level of contamination or long-term.
So the soil could be contaminated, the water could be contaminated, right? The livestock could be contaminated. This could be something that we don't even know, maybe for years down the road, the impact of what's happened here, right? Would that be safe
Yeah,
to
that's
say?
the fear of the residents there in Columbiana County and East Palestine and Western Pennsylvania, because that's only 15 miles away, and even Pittsburgh's 30 miles away. So yeah, in that vicinity, it is a very severe situation, and I just don't think I think it's unfair for like Cincinnati people to say that all of Ohio is toxic. That there's no credible information that suggested that. But in that area where it happened, it's a very severe situation and one of the most catastrophic environmental disasters in the history of the United States.
So hey, Jeff, this is a big deal. It really is a big deal, right? And so Jeff, you're doing a lot of the coverage, a lot of it, and at the Epic Times. And although Tucker Carlson did a segment on it last night, for the most part, the mainstream media isn't picking this thing up, are they? What do you think? What do you think that is?
I was there for the only other. I saw Sarah Carter from. She works with Sean Hannity and Fox. Was talking to her and her videographer. She was the only other national media person along with me for a couple of days until the town hall. And when the town hall happened, it was like a media frenzy. There was it was like TV cameras everywhere and print people everywhere. But that's not getting a whole. But the thing is, there's so many derailments going on right now. There's so many.
Yeah.
Like I'll be covering this long term regardless, but I would say in a couple of weeks something else will
They
happen,
do
and
move.
then
They move.
that will take the. It's just like the Chinese spy balloon happened, the first one, and now there's several of those balloons. So, and then the derailments. There was another one in Detroit yesterday. So, no, but none of them match the magnitude of
What's going
this
on there?
because it's 4 toxic chemicals, a controlled burn, prolonged fires, a small town in Appalachia that doesn't has a low average median income, and
Voted,
it's just
voted 80% for Donald Trump, right? It's what the,
oh yeah, it is for the most part it's a conservative area, and like most rural areas in Ohio, it's a conservative area. So yeah, they're not getting much. I know actually I have another interview I got to go on at 3:30, and then I got to finish 2 stories, one of which is the Biden administration released a statement today saying what they're going to do right now for East Palestine. And but they've been slow to react. The Department of Transportation, the Secretary, Buttigieg, and I always have trouble pronouncing his name, but he he was slow to react. He's getting a lot of heat for that. Governor DeWine's getting heat for lifting the evacuation order because Norfolk Southern couldn't run their trains until the evacuation order was lifted. So it was November 8th. Norfolk Southern is owned by, or partly, BlackRock is one of the owners. There's several companies that are in the ownership group.
Jeff, I know you have to go. Tom, anything you want to ask Jeff before we let him go? I appreciate you.
Yeah, I just some guys just like to do some digging on a particular topic. For me, when I'm like a dog with a bone on something, I don't necessarily want to wait for the news and stuff like that. Are there updates that are going on I don't know, Rumble or Band.video or something else? I'm sure there's Citizen Video, but is there I love your approach because the people in Idaho deserve the truth. We don't, even though we have our own, we're already suspect about what we think going on and connecting our own dots. It's important for us to be measured in that approach as well. So is there a place that we can go that you know of to watch videos of things that are there and have some kind of reliance that what we're seeing is truthful rather than waiting for the news articles to come out?
Well, it just depends on what you think is credible.
Oh God!
So obviously, social media.
Sorry, I walked into that one.
But I know we have myself and 2 others on our team are covering everything, and not just the East Palestine, but effect, but what's going on because 18 states could be affected by the water. We just don't know what's going to happen with the states that are connected to the Ohio River, because there's several tributaries and waterways. Mississippi River is indirectly connected to the Ohio River, so there's a lot of states that could be affected. They don't know right now what's going on. But yeah, I appreciate being on. I appreciate your time, and I can come back. I'll be in East Palestine again for 3 days next week for another series of interviews and meetings, and so
all right,
could give you an update after that.
We appreciate you adding us to that list. We're some folks out in Idaho. We just care. We see you're seeing Caldwell make it in the news. That's where I live with the school district and everything else, and so we're definitely being targeted. But that's a feather in our hat, man, Jeff, to have you join us, man. It means a lot. So I can speak on behalf of my friends in Idaho, and thank you very much for being with us.
I appreciate it, and hope you guys have a great day.
We'll be in touch. You too. Thanks a lot, Jeff.
Bye.
So Tom, one of the things I want to do, if I can do it real quick, I know it's your
of course.
No,
it's not, man. It's just we should be doing this every week.
Can I put on my tinfoil hat, Tom?
Yeah. Is the cross shining in through it?
Yeah, that's my tinfoil hat. And so now that we're all in here amongst friends, folks, you all certainly understand, don't you, that there is a huge, huge attack on our food supply all across America. We know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know the food supply is going on. We know what's going on with the fact that we couldn't get food into on the coast. We couldn't get food shipped. We know about the tornadoes we've had. We've known a lot of these things that are going on, Tom. And I'm going to tell you this from our standpoint, from where we sit here in Ohio, from people I hear other than Jeff, because he's probably, he has to be a little bit more less tinfoil hat. Tom, this has the potential to poison much of the Midwest. And if you could throw that map you had up there earlier, I want the people out there in Idaho to understand something. Only because you don't get the geography that we have here in Ohio. Go to that little map that you had up there, Tom. Yeah, right there. See, Ohio's that little heart right in the middle there, folks. And the Ohio River, there may not be proof of it, right? But we know that this fallout, that whatever these chemicals are, we've had rain within the last week. These chemicals have fallen into our waterways. Now, he said something that I thought was really, really critical. Tom, if you could, folks, if you would look, I'm sorry that this is so small. Tom, put that clear at the far, go to Ohio, Tom. Come back this way. Come on, right there, brother. Stay right there, right there. Right there. That's Cincinnati. That's Cincinnati. Clear down the bottom, Tom. Right there. Nope, there. Over. There, right there. Back, farther. Clear to the edge. Other way. There. That's Cincinnati. And you heard him say that Cincinnati is testing their water. That's 185 miles of open river, 185 miles from the spill. And it is so dangerous, Tom. They're checking their water in 200 miles. Now, Tom, does this sound like something that's not very big to you? Huh?
It sounds beyond anything that I could even say, Coach. Well, actually, it's not beyond anything I can say. It's sheer outrage. But see, the thing is I'm not looking. I'm like you are. You can say that I got to put my tin hat on, but we're in good company. The people that are watching this know that we know that our government's going rogue. There are several things that to connect with all of this too, and I think my wife was pointing them out, and I'm not sure where she's getting her stuff from, but but Jeff had alluded to that too. There are other derailments. Yes. There's Arizona and Texas, and then there's this, the threat of nuclear war, and there's
Tom, food processing businesses burning to the ground everywhere you look. Chicken factories burning up, right? Because if you can starve a people, you can control a people. Pardon me again. That's the tinfoil hat in me, right?
Well, we got control. I mean, you've got Bill Gates out here in Idaho I can speak to that's buying buying more. He's a major property owner. He's involved with Congressman Simpson in breaching our dams. Their, Agenda 2030, and I've read all of these documents for whatever it's worth for you guys. The original 341-page document to know what the UN is doing. I can unabashedly proclaim that this is just it's an outrage. It's planned, controlled. Agenda 21 calls it the rural initiative. And why is it that you think they ended up picking rural areas to be able to destroy them so that it will move people into the cities along with raising their taxes and everything else? You've got governments all the way down to the local level, and in Caldwell with the school district, as you know, made national news. They are at war with their citizens. They don't care what the citizens say. So when they go in here and they expect the town hall, then what's the government program to do? Well, the one thing to consider is all of these governments are acting in unison. It's not like it's just Cincinnati, Ohio, or Columbus, Ohio, or Meridian, Idaho. This is a global concerted effort to bring about this agenda, which I believe through Agenda 2030 and empowering the UN is bringing about the Great Reset, which has clearly been identified, just looking at the World Economic Forum. We've got the neutralization of soil. We've got the restriction of water. We've got the rural initiative. We've got the fact that they voted 80% for Trump. We got the fact that they're openly lying to us. I mean, who in their right mind would say, oh, it's safe to stay home when you really don't know?
Hey, Tom, do you have a picture? Did I send you the picture of the mushroom cloud that they created I don't know if I did or not. Folks, listen, this is unbelievable. I don't know if it's on, I don't know where I'm not very tech savvy when it comes to computer. But folks, I could show you a mushroom cloud when they made the decision. That's my grandkids. When they made it,
did you post it on your page yesterday?
I think I probably did. When they made the decision to burn this up, they created a mushroom cloud over this small town, Tom. I mean, when you see it, you say, "Holy smoke! What is that?" Fish began to die, and people had to. Goats that began to die from what we would call in the old days fallout. Do you remember that, Tom? Do you remember the days of fallout and fallout shelters? Well,
I remember that, the yellow and black signs in the parking garages.
That's right. And so somebody got in trouble because they said, what did they say? Oh, yeah. Well, there's radiation's fault. This little town in Ohio has been nuked, Tom. That's the kind of talk that we're hearing around here. Now, Jeff said, well, that's kind of sensationalism. Is it really? No. Is it really sensationalism? Or is this the next Love Canal? You guys remember that, right? Love Canal up in when radiation was released up there. I'm sorry, man. If people could see, I'm sorry I don't have that to you. If you could see that, there it is. Look at that. Look at that cloud, folks. This is not made up, all right? This is a faraway picture taken of when they blew up, they burned. Now, Tom, I find out now they said they had to do a slow burn because one of the tanker cars was going to blow. Can you imagine that?
Well, they were going to evacuate the communities in a several mile radius because they were going to explode these things. And then it sounded like Norfolk decided, or the city or the state government decided that they were going to burn it on their own. Was that?
That's right. Well, whatever that is. By the way, you did hear it's BlackRock. Does that ring?
Oh yeah, I know.
Ring a bell with anybody out there? BlackRock owns it. So, folks, that picture that you're looking at right there is not a made-up picture. That is a picture taken out of an airplane from a far away, showing the plume going up. And you tell me that's not a mushroom cloud, Tom? What does that look like to you? Well, and so that stuff. I'm not real smart, but here in Ohio, they taught us this: that what goes up must come down. Right.
So people in Ohio, I'm sure, are talking about the Netflix movie that came out last year, in the middle of last year, White Noise.
Yeah, White Noise. Yes.
And it was basically this entire scenario just unfolding in a movie. I wonder if the Simpsons covered that on an episode.
Predictive programming, right?
You know, well, they said, I know that there was some talk, and forgive me for not knowing the detail, but apparently the CDC changed some definition of toxicity or something like that 11 days before this.
11 days before, yes, 11. The parts per million, whatever that means, right?
And
it was like 10 parts per million, and then they said, we're going to change it to 1,000 parts per million, and then lo and behold, tinfoil happens. Lo and behold, this derailment happens, right? So with all the trains going on, though, and I know that the Weather Channel for the first time ended up posting it only a couple of days ago, so I assumed automatically it was a media blackout. But they were blaming poor maintenance and wheel bearings. It's like, do you know how many trains we have, and all of a sudden we're just going to have a bearing that goes bad? And so you were telling me that or somebody was, I think it was Vinny from Brooklyn. Is he on? Well, Vinny, he should be in. Vinny, can you come in, Vinny?
I'm here, brother. Yeah. Hey guys, listen, this whole thing is a satanic sacrifice. I just got to throw that in. It's nonsense. Okay. And remember these 4 words. I want you guys to understand the Brunson brothers are geniuses. They're absolute geniuses. You know why? Because they learned the 4 words that I figured out not too long ago. Fraud vitiates all contracts. Did you hear about the 340 families that signed the Norfolk Southern waiver? Well, those guys don't have to worry about that contract because that contract is an honest contract. It's not legal. It's a fraud. And so, guys, take that $1,000. Spend it however you want. Take care of yourselves, but understand you can't be held to that contract. It's an unlegal contract.
So, Tom, so Vinny's who's in Brooklyn is part of my daily show. Here's what's going on. the railroad company has offered residents $1,000, $1,000. And there are those who are saying as soon as they sign that contract to get to $1,000, then they lose their right for further litigation. That's what Vinny is speaking about. But folks, this is so much bigger. Hey Tom, look. They told us the vaccine. First of all, they told you that everybody's going to die from the vaccine. Then they told you you had to take the vaccine. Then they told you the vaccine wouldn't hurt you. Then they told you unborn babies wouldn't die. Tom, it's been one lie after another, after another, after another. And then the government comes in and say, believe us this time. We're telling you the truth this time. We really are.
Where's the climate change lobby in all of this?
Oh, well, see, I said to somebody the other day, right? Where are they? Right? How come they're not telling us to put on masks? How come they're not telling people to wear masks, right?
It's too bad we don't have
Where's Greta? I want to know where Greta is. How come Greta hasn't come out to decry this crisis?
Right. So, Tom, I don't know if some of your folks want to get in. I don't mean to dominate this, but
yeah, one other thing I wanted to mention was that people are saying, oh well, we've got all these toxic chemicals. As far as I'm concerned, when you look at Big Pharma, there's a great organization for you. Let's go back to Operation Paperclip, shall we? But interaction, I forget what the technical word is, but the interaction between chemicals. So if you were to take an MAOI inhibitor, is that what they call it? Or you end up suffering from something, they always tell you that you shouldn't take something else because it could be really bad. Nobody's talking about the fact that if there are, let's say, 4 toxic chemicals, one which was used for chemical warfare in the wars that we won't even talk about, but nobody's even talking about the escalation of toxicity as they relate to one another, regardless of them just being separate. Anyway, just a thought. Does anybody else have any thoughts on there they want to talk about?
Tom, let me throw this in there real quick before you bring him in. I posted this meme on Facebook today, folks. Are you with me? I posted this meme. The government said the vax was safe. Unborn babies aren't human. Air and water are clean in Ohio. That men can become women. That Trump colluded with Russia. The elections were honest. Praying in schools illegal. An armed insurrection happened on January 6th. And Putin is bad and Ukraine is good. They tell us lie after lie after lie after lie after lie, and then say, believe us this time. We're really telling you the truth this time, right?
Did you write that shit? Did you write that somewhere, Coach? That would be great to post.
It's on my Facebook page.
Okay, I think I'm gonna go ahead and do that for sure. So you guys, if you don't know, Coach Daubenmire is a friend of mine. We met, God, I don't know, it feels like 15 or 20 years ago now, but I met him in a small church in Meridian, Idaho, and he was coming to speak, and he was going to give a lesson. He was sued by the ACLU for praying with his team in New London, Ohio. And I was just starting out then, and Coach is actually the one that kind of awakened the beast in me, that actually where I became who I am. And so I'm hoping that you guys are inspired as I am in him, as I am. But we get a chance to be able to visit once in a while. He's got his own podcast at CoachDaveLive.com. And I don't know if you're still on with newswithviews.tv, but
yep,
he's been around and he's shaking things up and everything. It's an opportunity that I love to do when I get together with him, and this just happened to be the perfect topic that happened to be sadly in his backyard. But I just wanted to invite you guys on there and meet him. If you guys have any questions that you want to ask him, now's a great time to do that. And you have been given the permission to unmute yourselves if you have anything that you'd like to say. And if we start talking, you can go ahead and just interrupt, because I'd love to hear what you guys have to say.
Coach is nailing it, guys. He's nailing it. He was on this definitely since Monday. We spoke on it last week, guys. This happened on February 3rd, and these bastards in the mainstream media didn't say one word about it. They have to be complicit. Otherwise, what were they doing? Otherwise, very simple.
It's true.
Thank you.
It's true. So I guess, Coach, you're gonna probably continue to do updates. So what do you do? You've got a show at for us. It's still a little early, but you've still been going nonstop for what, 5 years every morning at 5 a.m. our time, 7 a.m. your time. Is that right?
Yeah. In fact, hang on there a second. I got to get some proof here. Today was, Tom, I'm not bragging, just telling you the truth. Today was Friday, my 1,829th show. I've been doing this. I've been doing this for over 7 years. Every morning at 7 a.m. And Tom, here's where we go where the church won't go. Do you hear me, folks?
Amen.
We go where the church
Boom.
won't go, because what we see right here, and see, I don't mean to cast aspersions on anybody, any guest, yada yada, anything like that, anybody's perspective. But if you don't understand that what we're dealing with is a spiritual war, that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. That Psalm 2 talks about the kings of this earth are conspiring against the Lord and his anointed. If you don't understand that there is such a thing as Team Jesus and Team Lucifer, and that the battle that's breaking out in front of us is that battle, that spiritual war. So what I do, and what I've been doing for, how many was it? 1,827 shows, is I've been trying to tell people, look at what's going on, and here is the spiritual significance to why this is happening. And until we come back and realize that there is no political solution to a spiritual problem, and until we right ourselves spiritually here in the good old US of A, we are not going to get anywhere. It's not Republican, liberal, conservative, Democrat. It ain't any of that stuff. It's the seed of the serpent against the seed of the woman. At its very heart, that's the battle. Now, Tom, I'm not real popular in some circles, because why? I call out the Republicans just the same. Can I tell you something, friends? I have a pastor friend of mine who's just been indicted on 4 charges for the January 6th insurrection. By the way, Tom, they called it an armed insurrection. I was there. I took 160 people with me. The armed insurrection, people were armed with Bibles, bullhorns, flags. That was what they were armed with, all right? And they just indicted my pastor friend 4 federal charges for what? For what? What did he do other than petition his government for a redress of grievances? But what they did, this is for your audience, Tom, because I know they're clear out there and maybe they don't get the same news that we get. Hey, folks, I was there. That was the most peaceful thing I was ever part of in my life until I got to this Capitol building with 1 million of my other friends, only to see that they were doing breaking windows and doing all that stuff. Those people were planted. Those were plants. Those were government plants to do what? See, the Constitution grants us the right to peaceably assemble to petition our government for redress of grievances. So, Tom, you know what they did? They put their own people in there and made sure it wasn't peaceful. Did you guys know this? Hey, folks, do you know this? Do you understand this? That in that whole insurrection, that's the word they use, that whole insurrection, not one person, not one. Tom, do you guys out there in Idaho know what 1 means? You guys know what that means, right? 1 is right after 0. There was not one person, not one gun charge in that whole thing. Did you know that? 2 million people there, not one person charged with a gun violation and what was an armed insurrection. Well, so what? So what's going on? Seed of the serpent, the government, against the seed of the woman, the people. That's the battle that's before us. And folks, I hate to tell you this. There are about 600 guys still in prison for January 6th. Never had their day in court. And I want to ask you something. Where are the Republicans? Why aren't the Republicans trying to get these guys out? Can I tell you why? Because election fraud crosses both parties, baby. It crosses both parties. Huh? Oh, yeah, you think some of those old guys have been in there for however many years? You think they keep getting reelected? No. You're smarter than that, aren't you? So, Tom, that's what I try to do every morning, is I consume the news. And then I take it through the filter of the gospel. That's what we do.
Amen. Well, see, now everybody could get an idea. Oh, that's where Tom came from. Yeah, I don't do it the same way you do, man. But I tell you what, you put the fire in me, and that kept me going. And so, I guess I live till I survived to live another day, and continue to do what we're doing. Idaho's definitely been on target, or under attack with the Caldwell thing. I went to we have a Capitol Clarity where they do a legislative update every week. and they were talking about a bill that said that basically it's okay to, we don't want to ban books. We just want to make sure that the satanic, books for sexual deviants are just put in another room. And
Right.
I have a big problem with that, but apparently nobody else in the room seemed to, or didn't want to be able to say what needs to be said.
Tom, I'm sorry, Tom. This gets to the heart of me, right?
Of course it does.
So you mean to tell me that the people in Idaho, that's where you live, right? Idaho, live
Yep.
free or die, something like that. I mean, some patriotic place out there, right?
Sure.
You mean to tell me the people in Idaho do not care that the schools are teaching a little boy to cut off his penis? The parents don't care about that out there, Tom. You gotta be kidding me, right?
Well, they had so our population is about 1.8 million. And so there were 1,000 people there, Coach.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
I mean, it's not really good when you consider the overall population, considering it made national news, but people are starting to pay attention more in the local issues. But the problem is they're still taking a very neutral, a very tolerant position by saying, we don't want to offend sexual deviants.
Yep,
We just
that's
want to
right.
make sure that it's just not accessible for children. And one of my questions in the meeting yesterday was, are you aware that this agenda specifically was designed to be able to go after your children?
Tom, are you guys mad that the sexual deviants are trying to cram their beliefs down your throat? Not only down your throat, down their children's throat, right?
Yeah, not as many as you would think. And maybe I'm speaking from a bit of a pessimistic position, but overall, the movement here is generally reduced to working on getting good candidates elected in office. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. The problem is when you have a rather ignorant public that is frantically emotional, they can't define what good is. Then what happens is that we perpetually get what our founders had warned us about, which was the government that we deserve. If we're going to take a tolerant position, so will our government. If the philosophy of the schoolroom in one generation is the philosophy of government in the next, and we're tolerant as a people, and we're even more tolerant with our kids, what is the future generation going to look like? And so this, I think, directly relates to the problems that we have, because there are still, we've got nuclear plumes going off all over the country. We've got toxic spills all happening the same week. We've got a massive awakening going on where the deep state's trying to be able to maintain control of the narrative while people are waking up. And this is just one more thing that is happening. The sad part is this is one event that's going to be able to hamstring half of the country. And although we won't necessarily find out about what's going on right now because the media is going to be lying to us, and we still have to do a bunch of testing and all of that, where all this is going to go. Oh, people are dying of the same thing they did from COVID, right? Strokes, heart attacks. Somehow it's going to be related to climate change. Somehow it's going to be related to something else. And so the government, in its brilliance, maintains its narrative by overwhelming people in fear to be able to help them see what's happening, which is why I believe if they end up calling for this alien invasion thing that people keep talking about, it's not a conspiracy theory. Why wouldn't it be a possibility with as loony as our government has become? And so it's not a real heavy stretch to see that the Simpsons are allegedly predicting 21 incidences that have happened in America, and yet they've all come true. We've got movies that are created 6 months ago before tragedies, and somehow this tragedy happens, and yet everything is okay. So, I mean, I think FDR probably said it right. If it was FDR, I remember there was a quote. He said, "If anything happens in politics, you can bet it was planned that way."
So, Tom, here's our problem, folks. And again, I always look at everything from a spiritual point of view. Okay, just so you know where I come from. And we're in the mess that we're in because they lied to us and we don't care. Mm-hmm. They lied to us and we don't care. Now, hang on a second. There was a day that we did, right? Now, remember this. Satan, old Beelzebub, Lucifer, he has two weapons, Tom. That's all he has. He has lies and fear. There's only two weapons he has. He's good at lying and he's good at fear. God says not been given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. So when I see something come out from the government, I ask this: Is it true? And what are they trying to scare me to do? Because that's what it comes down to. So listen, Tom, they go out and hire 87,000 new IRS agents. Well, first of all, they didn't. That was a lie. But why would they do that? They want to scare you, right? They want to scare you. So again, I want to go through this list. They lied to us. Folks, as I read this from a spiritual perspective now, okay? The government said the vax was safe. We now know that the people getting sick are the ones that had the vaccine. So number one, they lied to us and they used fear. Then they said unborn babies aren't human. They lied to us and they used fear. Then they said the air and water are clean in Ohio. And they lied to us. It's not true, right? Then they told us that men can become women. They lied to us. I'm talking about our government here, right? Come on, I talk about our government. They told us that Trump colluded with Russia when it was the FBI that colluded with Russia, right? You can't believe, because look, see, I see it from a spiritual perspective. It's a football game. It's the devil's team against the Lord's team. And you always know that you score a touchdown if you tell the truth. You expose the truth. It's truth that sets us free. And when you turn on your television, you are fed nothing but lies. That's what we're dealing with, Tom.
Well, and and the cool thing, I mean, I know we're up against a couple minutes here, but that's why when I saw this and I found out it was in Ohio, it was a great excuse to be able to connect with you, because I think you and I, is you've been at this a lot longer than I have, but I think we still have the same goals. We're trying to be able to inform people and give people the truth and get them to think a little more critically, perhaps, than they would have otherwise, to help them diminish or reduce a little bit of the emotional side of who they are and look at the intellectual side of the argument. And what you're even talking about today is including probably the most important thing for us to remember, and that's that spiritual aspect. And it's not about what you can each of us can do as an activist. What are you going to do according to your faith? If you're standing before the pearly gates, they say, right, and you're gonna be judged for the things that for the things that you've done, what would you say? And so for me, that's what motivates me to work even harder, right? I don't want to be the guy that's left behind, like, oh, sorry, the gates are closed.
So Tom, here's a classic example of it. Here's a classic example. We're talking about Lucifer and Jesus, right? I followed baby Cyrus pretty closely, right? Mm-hmm. I followed that whole thing. And the government lied and lied and lied and lied and lied. And what happened? Well, baby Cyrus's grandpa shows up with the truth. Not only does he show up with the truth, he brings a bunch of people with him who are demanding the truth. And what happened to the other side's argument? It dissipated, didn't it?
And he's coming back. He's coming back in March again.
So we got to see this. We got to understand that this is how this battle's played. That it's only the truth that makes us free. The battle's over truth. We got to, folks. No matter how much people don't want to hear it, you got to tell them the truth. Do you want to go to the doctor and you have terminal cancer, and the doctor tells you, "Oh, you just got a bad cough. Here, take a throat lozenge," or do you want him to tell you the truth? I want him to tell me the truth. And the government constantly lies because they're promoting Lucifer's agenda.
Yeah. Well, Coach, will you, if there's any further questions, now'd be the time. We're going to sign off here in a sec, but will you keep us up? Will you keep at least me updated? Maybe keep us updated on what's going on, or if we don't end up doing these, are you going to be covering this on your show? And if you are, where is your website and all that stuff so people can
just have them to go to CoachDaveLive.com, because I do that show every morning. CoachDaveLive.com. We covered it this morning. We'll periodically cover it. I move around a lot, but this is a pretty big issue. Folks. If you don't think that the water in Ohio is contaminated, you're dumber than a rock. I don't even know what to tell you. I couldn't care less what the government tells me. If you can look at that cloud and think that thing isn't going to rain down into the cornfields and the wheat fields and into the river, you're dumber than a stinking rock.
Yeah.
That's what I try to do, man. Open your eyes and look around. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. They don't get it. Tom, it's been a real joy to be with you, man.
Yeah, you too, man. So, Yeah, so hopefully we get to connect again. It's always inspiring and it's energizing to be able to be on with you, Coach. The energy just shoots right through the airwaves, and so I'm ready to finish the rest of my day with a bang. But I really wanted to thank everybody else that took the time to join the meeting. It will be recorded if you find it worthy of sharing. That's going to be at Coach Dave Live too, Coach. Or will that be on your video channel?
Coach Dave Live. Yep, CoachDaveLive.com. CoachDaveLive.com. It'll be there. Hey, Tom, let me throw this out before I leave, because to me it's pretty. It just shows where we are. For 2 years, they told you to wear a mask to keep from getting something that you couldn't even see, and then you see a mushroom cloud, and they don't tell you to wear a mask.
They tell you. Well, that was good. That was a good one to bring home, wasn't it? Oh my gosh, that's so good. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, the epitome of irony is what our government is. That's for sure.
Amen.
But anyway, well, thank you guys for joining us, Coach. Thank you again. I love jumping on with you. I'll just find another excuse and then I'll have you on again. Okay.
Sounds great, buddy. I appreciate it.
All right, bro.
Say
Thanks, everybody. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.